Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judy, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the 14-Yard NFL Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast. I'm your host Sam Moores and this is our Week 16 preview, meaning that Christmas is upon us. And that means only one thing really. You've got plenty of festive NFL coming up over the next week or two. And joining me to break down the best games on UK TV this week and pick our winners in the rest of the games is the one and only Shaun Blundell. Welcome back to the podcast, Shaun. It's been a bit of a while.
It has been a while, mate. I mean, you say Week 16, only feels like yesterday, man, you were talking about you taking over the hosting duties, and here we are, nearly a full season later, mate. It's flown by as it always does, mate, but always good to jump on and chat some ball, mate.
Yeah, and we've got football on Saturday, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and a cracking Monday night football game that creeps over to Boxing Day as well. But first, we'll start with Thursday night football, where the Rams moved one step closer to the postseason. The first time since the Super Bowl win 2 years ago, of course, with a win over the Saints. They won 30-22, but don't let the score deceive you. The Rams were in control of the whole game here. They were up 30-7 in the fourth quarter, with the Saints scoring 15 points in basically garbage time to make it a one-score game. But yeah, the Rams were excellent. Matthew Stafford continued his impressive season with another 328 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns, and he connected with Puka Nacua for one of those TDs on his way to 180 total yards. Kyren Williams also had another 100-yard day as well and a touchdown, and he ticked over to 1,000 yards on the season with 10 games played, which is really impressive. And then, as for the Saints, well, they had a slow start again, and it's proved costly, as it has with a lot of games with the Saints this season. If they can't get it going on offense straight away, they're pretty much non-existent, and it's a shame because their defense is really good. They really struggled to move the ball, especially on the ground against this Rams defense, just couldn't get anything going with Alvin Kamara or Jamal Williams. But their season is still alive, kind of. They just need to win the next two, and they've probably got in the playoffs at 9-8. And if the Bucs lose this week, they've still got an excellent shot of winning the NFC South too. It just shows how bad the NFC South has been this season. So Shaun, just sort of takeaways from this, I guess. The Rams, they've basically got one foot in the postseason now, haven't they? Yeah,
they've had an impressive season, really. They're one of the teams at the start of the year that I think most people expected to struggle, particularly with Cup starting the season on IR and lots of young sort of players being brought in, but they've been excellent, haven't they? Like you say, Puka Nacua has been an absolute revelation, dominated again last night. It probably already cost me my fantasy football matchup this week. So thanks for that, Puka. But yeah, they've been quite impressive, mate. I think they probably, like you say, 1 foot in the playoffs now, I would suggest. Maybe one more win is probably enough in the NFC. You would imagine that probably 9 wins is enough for a wild card on that side. So yeah, like you say, an impressive season. I think the Saints have been middling and disappointing, but that seems to have been the trend for a while now. Derek Carr's obviously been in and out of the lineup, and it's not quite sort of worked as they would have hoped. It feels very much like if they don't win that division, and you could maybe even argue, even if they do and they're one and done in the playoffs, that changes are potentially on the horizon there in New Orleans, because it's been a little bit of a stagnation, hasn't it, in the last few years. They haven't really stepped out of the Sean Payton shadow. So not overly impressed with what the Saints have put out this year, but the Rams are a team that nobody's going to want to play. They run a unique style of offense. There's plenty of motion, plenty of trickery. Sean McVay's an excellent head coach still. Let's not forget 2 or 3 years ago when they won that Super Bowl, everybody was looking for the next Sean McVay, and the NFL's obviously, what have you done for me lately, league? So you get a lot of chatter now about the likes of Sirianni and Steichen and everything, but let's not forget Sean McVay's still very, very good at what he does here. So Rams will be an interesting opponent in the wild card round. And to be honest, if you're looking at the current matchup, Lions-Rams, sign me up for that.
Yeah, brilliant.
Belter.
or especially the history as well, obviously of the Stafford Goff trade and everything else. It's a really, really enticing matchup that is. And yeah, as for the Saints, I think if they don't win a division, I think they're going to clear house because they're so stuck in the Sean Payton era now, because all three of their coordinators are still people who were there when Payton was there. A lot of the players are still the same. They've got Taysom Hill, a big part of the offense. It's still very much everything. It's basically as it was without Payton. He's just gone, but everything else has continued, and they're sort of just stuck in no man's land with a quarterback who is sort of the perfect quarterback for no man's land in Derek Carr, really, aren't they? Yeah. Okay, we'll go over to Saturday now. We've got 2 games on Saturday before the main slate on Christmas Eve, and we'll go through these ones pretty quickly. Just pick a winner in them. We'll start with the Bengals going into Pittsburgh, which is a huge game in the AFC wildcard race, especially for the Bengals. Steelers are looking unlikely right now, but obviously it's 2 fierce AFC North rivals. The Bengals are currently the 6th seed after 3 straight wins under backup QB Jake Browning, but they will be without Jamar Chase in this one, which is an interesting proposition. And also it gets tougher from here for them as well, playing 3 teams at 500 or better in Pittsburgh, and then going to Arrowhead next week, and then finishing with the Browns in Week 18. The Steelers were firmly in the wildcard places a few weeks ago, but they've lost 3 straight since losing QB Kenny Pickett to a high ankle sprain. Mitch Trubisky was awful in those games, so much so that even though Pickett is not playing on Saturday, it will not be Mitch Trubisky as a starter. It will be Mason Rudolph who makes a start for Pittsburgh tomorrow. And with a tough 3 games coming up, this probably could be Mike Tomlin's first losing season, which is which it looked quite promising a couple of weeks ago, but now it's just not gone their way, unfortunately. And I think that will continue. I'm going to pick the Bengals to win this game. But I don't know how close it'll be. The spread's 2.5 points. I thought I probably would be backing. I think they'll cover that easily, if I'm being honest. But I mean, the Steelers always make it interesting, obviously AFC North as well, but I don't trust them, especially on offense, with Mason Rudolph starting at QB.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. And to be fair, whether it's been Rudolph, Pickett, Trubisky, this offense just hasn't fired all year. They had one decent game, didn't they, when they changed offensive coordinators, where they put up over 400 yards of offense. Ironically, that was against the Bengals back about a month ago. But since then, it's just reverted back to type. There's a lot of question marks at the minute about attitude. There's a lot of question marks about discipline. I'm a huge Mike Tomlin admirer, as somebody that has had to sort of face his teams twice a year. They are always well drilled, well coached, but there just seems to be a few cracks starting to appear. Very un-Pittsburgh-like, to be honest. It's a very strange situation.
It's weird as well, because he was a favourite for Coach of the Year a few weeks ago as well, and now we're talking about having a losing season, and they've still got the Defensive Player of the Year favourite in TJ Watt as well. It's mental to think, isn't it?
It is, but I think, like I say, the overall season as a whole, you go back to when they were sitting at sort of 7-4, and it felt a little bit fraudulent then, in terms of the way they got there. Infamously, they've been outgained in every game. They were consistently winning the turnover battle, which was really the thing that kept them going. But the turnovers have slowed in the last few weeks. They've only managed 3 takeaways in the last 5 games. They managed 8 in the first 3 games of the season alone, so the pace has certainly slowed down, as it tends to. These things kind of even themselves out. The Bengals are a really interesting one, because I think if you'd said to any Cincinnati fan when Joe Burrow went down that you were going to potentially go on a run and be in a position to secure a playoff berth, I think most would have been very, very shocked at that. Browning's been excellent, to be fair. However, as you say, different proposition without Chase in the ball game. He has, let's be honest, thrown a few up there, and it's like Jamar's down there somewhere. We had the infamous Tyreek and Patrick Mahomes, sort of that was that combination. It's been quite similar, just toss it up and Jamar will do something. But with that said, credit where it's due, they've certainly put themselves well in the race. Selfishly, I'd love a Steelers win. I think that would be fantastic. I just can't see it happening now. I actually had this conversation with a couple of lads on a Browns podcast we recorded yesterday, and I agree with you. I think Cincy win this a shade comfortably, to be honest. I think Pittsburgh just really are in a bad way.
There we are. And then Saturday finishes with the Bills in the national spotlight, trying to reach their 5th straight postseason. This is the first game to be streamed exclusively on Peacock, NBC's streaming service, and they do not have a game this week. Other than that, Sunday Night Football is on NFL Network, so they're trying to spin out this week as it's Christmas. The Bills could still be AFC East winners. They win 3 straight and there's a chance. Obviously, they fired OC Ken Dorsey after the loss to the Broncos, and since then they've averaged 29.25 points a game and have faced 3 of the league's best defenses in the Jets, the Chiefs, and the Cowboys in that time, and also play the Eagles. So they're hitting form at the right time and beating some very, very tough defenses with Joe Brady calling the plays. Now, they dominated the Cowboys last week, and now looking at one of the scariest teams in the league. And they looked out of it a few weeks ago, which is just it's mad to see. And like I said, they still got a chance at the division, but they have to beat Miami in Week 18 and win the other 2 games coming up. They face a Chargers team with interim head coach Giff Smith following the firing of Brandon Staley after their Thursday Night Football thrashing by the Raiders. They may get a new coach bounce, but I don't think it'll be enough to win this because Buffalo have been excellent. They may even win by 3 scores. And that was especially because obviously Justin Herbert's out, also Keenan Allen and Joey Bosa have already been ruled out as well. So I don't think the Chargers will win a game the rest of the year, let alone this one.
Yeah, it's hard to see anything other than a Bills win. Like you say, the resurgence. I mean, to be fair, I don't think the offensive coordinator was necessarily the problem. Consistently, if you look at it, they were putting up plenty of offense, week in and week out. But sometimes, we talked about the Saints earlier feeling a little bit stale. This group's been together for a while and maybe just a change of scenery, a change of personnel, and it's freshened things up a little bit for them. They're certainly a hot team right now. Anybody that's sort of in the playoff picture, the one thing they've got going against them is a lot of the tiebreakers aren't in their favour. They probably do need to win out to even probably secure a wild card, you would imagine. I think if they finish at 10-7, they're probably going to lose out on tiebreakers to an awful lot of scenarios.
It's mental, isn't it? Because they could swing. They could either win a division or not make the playoffs, which is just mental, isn't it?
Yeah. It shows how close it. I mean, the fact that we've only got 1 confirmed AFC participant at the minute, and we've only got 3 weeks of the season left, tells you all that you need to know. It's crazy how close it's become, but they're certainly the team that are on the charge. Let's put it that way. So obviously anybody that's above them at the minute, they'll have an eye over the shoulder. And I agree with you. I think they'll win this one a shade comfortably as well.
Awesome. Right, we'll get into our featured game in the early window on Sunday. It is the Browns heading to Houston. It's the game that Sky is showing in the early window as well, and it's a crucial clash in the AFC wildcard race as well. Another one. The Browns, head to Houston as the 5 seed, and should they win this one, they're practically in the postseason, which is super impressive. Bear in mind they're on the 4th QB and are missing a ton of players through injury. The Texans are the 8 seed currently, so just on the outside of the playoffs. They're one of 4 teams on 8-6, and a win here will bring Cleveland back towards the chasing pack as well. So it's a very, very key game. 9 teams are within 2 games of each other in the AFC playoff race, so it's completely wide open, as you said, Sean. And after the Jags lost another game in the AFC's, obviously the AFC South now is just up for grabs because there's 3 teams at 8-6, and anyone could win it, and there's a chance the Texans could lead it by the end of the week. But it doesn't sound good regarding quarterback CJ Stroud, who could miss his 2nd straight game recovering from a concussion. As a Browns fan, Sean, I'm sure that news probably encourages you.
Yeah, look, I'm very much. I don't like to see players injured. The Browns have suffered enough of that themselves this year. I'd have loved to have seen CJ Stroud play. He's been exceptional all year. And it would have been good to see him up against the Browns' defence because it's the Browns' defence that's obviously carried them throughout the course of the year. Yes, there's no doubt about it that the offence has seen an uptick, certainly in terms of the passing game in the last few weeks with Joe Flacco. But ultimately, it has been the defence that's really led the charge. So it would have been good to see Stroud against the Browns' defence. Obviously, from a very selfish perspective, yes, I'd much rather face Case Keenum in terms of trying to win the game. Keenum obviously a lot less mobile, a lot less dynamic, and certainly, he's a backup quarterback for a reason, isn't he? So it certainly improves the Browns' chances. There's no doubt about that. They're also potentially going to be missing Willie Anderson as well, which is going to be important on the other side of the ball. Where the Browns have suffered is on the offensive line. I mean, like I say, injury-wise, it's ludicrous, really, what the Browns are doing. Yeah. They've got 26% of the entire salary cap on IR at the moment, which is just unbelievable. And offensive line-wise, they're on now to the 10th offensive lineman that's played snaps this year, which is just crazy. The tackles are a real weakness, so the fact that the Texans will be without Anderson is a huge boost in terms of Cleveland's prospects. And like you say, mate, if they can find a way to win this one on the road, it effectively puts their playoff chances up above 99%. So although they won't necessarily clinch, there are a number of scenarios that they could clinch this week, but it's very, very complicated. We might as well wait till next week to talk about clinching scenarios. It's that complicated. But essentially, they will be pretty much, like you say, 1 foot in the door with a win this weekend, which would be a phenomenal achievement, everything considered, in terms of the volume of injuries that they've had and everything. The one thing with the Browns, though, the road splits have not been good. They've been very, very good at home. When it comes to Cleveland Brown Stadium, they've been excellent. They're 7-1 at home. They're 2-4 on the road. So this is an important game because in all likelihood, there is still a scenario where the Browns might get first in the division, but it would require the Ravens slipping away now and the Browns winning out. In all likelihood, the Browns are going to go on the road in the playoffs, even if they get there. And at the minute, like I say, there's a huge difference in terms of what they produce at home and what they produce away. So really important game. Chance to knock a contender out the equation as well. Because I think ultimately, if the Texans were to lose this one, I think they drop to something like 30-odd% chance of making the playoffs. So really is an important game, and one I am thoroughly looking forward to.
Yeah, same with me. I'm really interested to see how this goes because obviously you've got two teams, both look very well coached this year, the entire year, playing winning football as well. They're doing the right things, very efficient. They're led by veteran quarterbacks. So obviously, I've been in the league for years. They're both on their 15 billionth team. So it's a very interesting dynamic. It's just we'll get to the Texans quickly, Shaun, before we sort of go and pick the game. But I just want to know, what do you see in this Texans team? Because if they don't get in the postseason this year, they certainly will soon, right? Because they're such an awesome turnaround. Again, they look very well coached. D'Amico Ryans is a coach of the year, contender for a reason. They're obviously very young team, young core. Every position that really you build around: quarterback, edge, rusher, corner of Derek Stingley, and you've got a good offensive line as well. They're a team really much built for the future, aren't they?
No, absolutely, mate. I think back to when we did our season previews right at the outset, and we said that Houston would be a team to watch, but that was without the sort of level of production that you've seen from CJ Stroud. I don't think any of us expected him to come in and light things up the way that he has done, and that obviously gives you massive excitement for the future of the franchise when you've potentially nailed the most important position that you need to get right. He's had a brilliant connection with Tank Dell as well. That's been a bit of a revelation. It's a shame that he's out now, because he was having a superb sort of rookie campaign. But he's made people like Nico Collins into very viable weapons and Noah Brown into a very viable weapon. It's incredible what they've been able to do, really. I thought the hire of Ryans was excellent in the summer. He obviously had done great work at San Francisco. Yes, there was a lot of pieces already in place when he took that position on, but I think he probably even took the defense to another level compared to what Robert Saleh had them playing at. So he, like you say, absolutely in the running for Coach of the Year. I actually joked with somebody yesterday, this might be a playoff game for the Coach of the Year, in terms of the two that are in here. In terms of everything that Stefanski's battled against injury-wise and to get the Browns to where they are. And like you say, D'Amico Ryans probably well exceeding expectations in his first year. Listen, I think they're around for a long haul. Like you say, obviously, I personally probably just favour the Colts at the minute in that division based on the schedule and based on the running, and I think the Jags are a bit of a mess at the wrong time. We'll come on to the other games in a minute, so I'll probably just about fancy the Colts to take the division. So I think this is a huge, huge game for the Texans in terms of those wild card positions. So it's one that they'll probably have circled as a great opportunity. But yeah, they've been a real revelation this year, mate, and long may it continue because they've had a few years, let's be honest, post Deshaun Watson in his heyday, have been, basement dwellers and not particularly good, have they? So nice to see them return to form.
Yeah, a long 4 years since they last reached a postseason with Deshaun Watson. So yeah, it's been a long time. So yeah, it'd be nice to see them do that. 6 of the Browns' 9 wins this year have been by one score, and in fact they're 6-2 in one-score games. So yeah, if it's close, I think they're going to end up with the win. I think it's just what's happened all year. But yeah, no, if Stroud does play, which is unlikely, I think it'll be closer than people think. But yeah, even so, give me Cleveland to win this one.
I like your optimism as a Browns fan. I like your optimism. There's no doubt that it's a more interesting matchup without Stroud. I think with Stroud, I think the line would have been quite favourable for the Texans, particularly like so with the Browns road splits. But there just feels something almost inevitable about this Browns team this year. Can't put my finger on it. They had no right to win last week, and they did. Ultimately, I just think there's a bit of a fairy tale story in there somewhere, and I will agree with you, Matt. I think the Browns get it done this week, and then they can sit back and hopefully a few scenarios play in their favour, and they'll be pretty much there.
Awesome. Right, we'll go through the rest of the 6 p.m. Slate, just picking our winners in each game. We'll start with the Colts heading to Atlanta. Two teams trending in very different directions. The Colts have won 5 of their last 6 games and currently sitting in the playoffs as the 7 seed. As you said, Shaun, with a chance at the AFC South title. They haven't been spectacular, but they've been playing. Another team that's been playing efficient football on both sides of the ball, and they are winning because of it. The Falcons, on the other hand, have really struggled recently, dropping from 1st to 3rd in the NFC South by losing 2 straight division games to the Bucs and the Panthers, and they've won just 2 in the last 7 games. Lose this, and I think Arthur Smith is probably gone. They're out of the playoffs at that point. His offense has just regressed with better talent this year too. They've switched back to Taylor Heineke at QB just to sort of try and scream desperation, trying to save his job really. But I don't think that will work. So give me the Colts to win this one, and I think Jonathan Taylor being back for the Colts this week will be a huge boost as well.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Give me the Colts all day. I've been really disappointed with the Falcons. I think, again, that NFC South's been crying out for somebody to take it and want to win it, and nobody seems to want to. And they're probably as disappointing as anybody, because they were the ones, again, pre-season that most people would have penciled in to say, yeah, they've got some, as you say, addition of talent. Had a reasonable enough season last year, but Desmond Ridder's gone backwards. I agree with you. Taylor Heineke had a couple of games, didn't do anything particularly that made you think, yeah, they should go with him. So like I said, I do think it's a desperation move, but yeah, really disappointed. They were so poor last week. It's just impossible to find a scenario that you can pick them, isn't it?
Yeah, and speaking about the Panthers, who they lost to last week, they welcome the Packers this week, and the Packers are eager to keep the playoff hopes alive as well. They climbed their way back to 500, and the wildcard spots have run of 4 wins in 5. But since then, and upsetting the Chiefs in the meantime, they've dropped their last 2 games with some horrific defense as well. So they are now back at 6-8. The Panthers will be encouraged by what they saw from Bryce Young in the 4th quarter of their shock win over the Falcons. That game-winning drive was by far the best drive he's had in the NFL, and he was a top 10 QB last week according to PFF. So they saw something last week, and they'll be encouraged by that, and it sets up an interesting scenario heading into this game. I'm kind of tempted to pick the Panthers here. I may bet them to cover it on as the weekend comes in. But I think I'm going to go for the I'm going to go for the Packers because their season is over if they lose this, and obviously it's very important for them. So I'm banking on them turning up. But do I trust them? Absolutely not. So I think the Panthers to cover is one of my favourite bets of the week.
Yeah, listen, man, I think that's a fair shout. I'm not particularly high on Green Bay. I haven't been all year. When they put that run together, like you said, to get back to 500, I still wasn't particularly convinced, despite the fact there was a couple of key wins in there against the Lions, against the Chiefs, as you mentioned. I'm still yet to be totally convinced. It's very hard to still pick the Panthers, though, with that said. It was absolutely his best drive, but, he's the number 1 overall pick. That's what he's been brought in to do, and to get to 16 weeks in and only see very, very small glimpses of it has been a real disappointment. And it's probably made worse by the fact that how well Stroud's played for Houston as well. Houston feel like a franchise reborn. The Panthers, it feels like Jesus back to the well again. If they had the number 1 overall pick this year, would they potentially use it again on a quarterback?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think there's a strong argument that they may well do if they had it. They obviously haven't, so Bryce Young's got to improve massively. But yeah, I can't pick them yet, mate. I can't pick them yet. So probably just about take a few.
There we are. Right, we'll stay in the NFC North and we'll talk about the Lions-Vikings game. The Lions will clinch their first division title since 1993 and their first ever NFC North title with a win over the Vikings, because the last time they won a division it was the NFC Central, with the Bucs being the fifth team in a division, which just shows how long ago it has been, or how long it's been since the Lions have been good. Obviously 30 years coming, 32 years since their last playoff win, the NFC Championship loss to to Washington, but they are getting ever so close to their first playoff appearance since 2016, and obviously hopefully they do win a game this year. The Vikings would also be in the postseason if the playoffs started today, but there are 4 teams at 7-7 and 2 only a game back, and they have probably the toughest schedule of the lot of them, so a win here would go a long way. Unfortunately for them, I don't think it's going to happen though. I think the Lions, it's just a fairy tale story, them winning their first division in 30 years, and doing it against a division opponent as well is just beautiful. So I'm going to pick the Lions to win this, especially the fact the Vikings have only won one of the last 4, and that was the 3-0 game against the Raiders, and they're very injured as well. So yeah, give me the Lions to win their first division in 30 years.
Yeah, can't disagree, mate. I think the Lions have sort of struggled to get over the line in recent weeks. It was the most impressive performance by a long way, the game against Denver last week. Previous to that, they've been a little bit inconsistent. Even the Saints game that they won, they were up big and allowed the Saints to come back in that one. They obviously struggled to put away the Bears a couple of weeks prior to that, so they've kind of stumbled a little bit. They've gone from 6-2 to 10-4. So by no means a disaster. But like you say, Minnesota really reeling in terms of the injuries. Obviously the initial bounce that Josh Dobbs gave them has long disappeared. Mullins at quarterback now. You'd struggle to find a path for the Vikings, which is a shame, really, because this schedule, I thought, really played into a tight end-of-season race in this division. 2 games between the Lions and Vikings in the next 3 weeks, and obviously the Lions' other game sandwiched in between is away at Dallas, so we know how good Dallas are at home. So I thought there could have been a real close end to the season. And don't get me wrong, I suppose if Minnesota win this one, it might set it all up for week 18. But it's hard to see a way that the Vikings win this one.
It'd be so Lions to lose the division from here as well, wouldn't it? It'd be so, honestly, just literally a win away in there with 3 games to go, and it'd be so Lions if they were to bottle it. Anyway, we'll go over to New York now, where it's the 32nd ranked Commanders defense traveling to the Meadowlands to face a 32nd ranked Jets offense. That's a load of trash, and what a treat we're going to get as well, because it's mad to think that both of these teams were 3-3 in week 6. Fast forward 10 weeks and they've won 3 games between them since then of the 20. So that just shows how bad these 2 seasons have gone. Obviously one of them has to win, and we're going to go for the Jets. I think they're probably the team with the one standout unit. Their defense, I think, it probably caused problems, especially with Sam Howell. He's turned the ball over a lot. He's impressed me, but obviously that offensive line, and he has sort of thrown too many balls into tight windows for my liking. So I think it does cause problems. I'm not confident at that prediction, but give me the Jets to win. Just
give me a tie. No, it does happen. Give me a tie. One for the diehards. This, isn't it, mate? Like you say, New York's defense is certainly on paper the best unit on the field, and you would imagine that they will, like you say, continue that turnover trend. Hopefully for their offense, that sets up some short fields and that type of thing. Really strange team, though, aren't they? They put 30 points up on the Texans in a half the week before, then they lay a goose egg the following week. Another team that just has chopped and changed quarterback all year. The only good thing, mate, is that they're out of the postseason now, and the whole Aaron Rodgers defying science conversation has ended. Because that would have just about put a sort of final stamp on what's been a pretty ridiculous season that they've gone through. So, give me the Jets just about, but again, hardly with any sort of level of confidence.
Yeah, and then we'll finish the 6 p.m. window with the Seahawks heading to Tennessee, fresh off their upset win against the Eagles on Monday Night Football, and they're looking to jump back into the NFC wildcard places with a win here, and obviously the Saints losing last night would be as good for them as well. They're currently the 8th seed, but with a more favourable schedule, pull off a win here, and I think they're probably looking good to get into the postseason. As for who starts at QB, we don't know. Drew Lock's looked really good in the last 2 games, and Junior Smith's not been good the last like month or so before that. So it creates an interesting situation. Obviously, they went with Locke because he was more healthier on Monday night, but we'll see what happens there. Either way, I don't think it really matters. I think they still get it done here, whichever of them starts a quarterback. But I think it may have shootout vibes, which will be fun because a lot of Seahawks games are shootouts, and obviously Tennessee with Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins and Traylon Burks, they love a shootout too. And I'm really enjoying watching Will Levis at the minute too. So at least we've got something to look forward to next year. But yeah, I think they're gonna pick Seattle to win this just because I think it's more meaningful for them. And yeah, I think they look really good on Monday night.
Yeah, again, mate, hard to disagree with you. I think the Mike Vrabel's sneakily on a bit of a hot seat as well for me. He had a poor last season, and it's been a disappointing campaign on the whole. Potentially, like you say, the encouraging play of Will Levis, might be something that sort of saved him to an extent. But yeah, you would imagine, like you say, Seattle will be up for this. The only thing I would say is Seattle on the road, not as good as obviously they are at home. That's the one thing in Tennessee's favour. So, yeah, probably just about Seattle, but again, not massively confident.
Awesome. Right, we'll go over to the 9 p.m. window on Christmas Eve, and the big game here, the 10-4 Dallas Cowboys going into the 10-4 Miami Dolphins. Miami's Hard Rock Stadium will play host to the Who Have You Beaten Bowl between two very polarising 10-4 teams. Obviously, both teams have had excellent seasons, have played some outstanding football, but still have big question marks hovering over them. The Dolphins answered a few of those questions by beating the Jets without Tyreek Hill last week, but have come up short in three big road games to the Bills, the Eagles, and the Chiefs. Whilst Dallas were embarrassed in Buffalo last week and head from one of the most hostile atmospheres in the NFL to another stadium with a huge home field advantage in the heat in Miami. The Dolphins are number 1 in points per game. The Cowboys are number 2 in points per game, and it's a number 6 defense against a number 7 defense. Got 2 of the top 5 QBs this year facing off 2, and this is a great game to lead us into Christmas Day, isn't it, Sean?
Yeah, it's a superb game, mate. And I think, like you say, the question marks are obvious there for both teams, aren't they? Can Dallas get a win on the road? It's so important for them to secure home field advantage, or as much home field advantage as they can through the playoffs, because they're just so dominant at home and so vulnerable on the road. And obviously, when you flip it over to the Dolphins, can they get a win against a team with a winning record? They've beaten up on teams that they should have beaten up on. But as you say, when they've come up against teams with a winning record, it's ludicrous, really, to think that all the wins have come against teams with a sub 500 record. You get 10 wins, you think at least one of them would be against another winner. But, like I say, they absolutely take care of business in those type of games. So this is a real test for both of them, in terms of a real quality opponent, no doubt about it, for Miami. But obviously, like you say, can they get it done on the road is the question mark for Dallas. I think it's probably a bigger game. I don't even know who it's a bigger game for, because you look at the Dolphins.
Honestly, I think for Miami it's bigger because if they lose this, they let Buffalo back in, and that's the real issue here. Because if they have to win these 2 games against the Cowboys and the Ravens, otherwise that Week 18 game against the Bills is for the division, because Buffalo have already beaten Miami once already this year.
Yeah, and it is a rough schedule, isn't it? Because the other game they've got is the Ravens. So, like you say, I suppose it kind of gives them a little bit of breathing room if they can get this one over the line. I suppose the thing that's in Dallas's favour is the Eagles seemingly are going the wrong direction. So maybe they can afford to lose one and still end up winning the East. We'll wait and see. Obviously, that shakes out. But yeah, really, really intriguing game, mate. I mean, I'm glad this one is actually on Christmas Eve rather than Christmas Day. I know some people like the Christmas Day slate, but I've got to be honest, it's not something I'm going to get to watch any of Christmas Day.
No.
I'm not even attempt to ask to get it on the TV. So I'm glad it's on Christmas Eve night, and it'll be a nice little nightcap, mate, while I put my carrot out for Rudolph before I head upstairs to bed.
Exactly. Yeah, as you said, the Cowboys are 7-0 at home this season. They look like a Super Bowl contender in Jerry world, and maybe even a favourite as well. But away from home, they struggle. They've got a losing record. They're 3-4. It's not just been this year either. It's been a recurring theme. And obviously, it hurts them in the postseason because a lot of the time they do go away from home and lose in the first round of the playoffs. The Dolphins are very similar. They're 6-1 at home this year, and have only lost twice at home these past 2 years with Tua at quarterback. And one of those was the game on Christmas Day last year where he got a concussion in the second half, and they blew the game when he threw interceptions on back-to-back drives. Yeah, so the home field advantage are going to a bit more obviously thin grass, which is a fast track, which helps the nature of the team. They're very fast, but also the opposing sideline is in the sunlight, so it's a difficult thing to deal with, especially for a dome team like Dallas, because you're burning, and then the home team are very cool. So it's another reason why Miami are very, very good at home. Again, they have a similar narrative. No one really trusts them. They're either too flashy or they play in a very cold environment, which is very different to Miami, and they struggle. That's a lot of the question marks over the last 2 years. Or they can't win the big games, or they're only good because of Tyreek Hill. So again, it's just, I think we're going to answer a lot of questions about some of these teams. This game, winning without Tyreek Hill last week helped for the Dolphins. Obviously, Jalen Waddle had a big day. They ran the ball well, but it sounds like he'll be back in this one, which is just huge for the Dolphins, isn't it? Because he is, for me personally, I think he's the MVP of football.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. That's a real fair shout. I think, like you said, there's plenty of questions that I'm looking forward to seeing what answers we get come Sunday. It's a really difficult game to pick for that reason, because, like you say, everything, if you like, that is the sort of negative trend is against each other here. So it's just a case of which side do you trust more. I think the weather advantage is great. I saw a Facebook video pop up this week really explaining that. And don't get me wrong, I was always aware of it, but it's really, really interesting to see the advantage that stadium does give the Dolphins. Hopefully, I suppose, a slightly later kickoff might neutralise that a fraction. And obviously the time of the year that we're in, it's different than obviously playing it at 1 o'clock kick in September. But even so, with that said, lots for Dallas to overcome. I'll probably take Miami at home, mate. And like you say, I think they've just got so many weapons, haven't they? So many weapons. So yeah, give me the Dolphins.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, having Tyreek Hill back, he has practiced this week, so that's huge for them. Having him back, only missing one game is mega in that way. Since too, it's really tough to pick a winner. As you said, I think we don't really know what each team is going to look like. It's it's pretty much uncharted territory for both teams because it's Miami's first big game against a winning record at home. So basically, they've had a very, very good, easy home schedule, very, very difficult road schedule. So we'll see what they're made up of in this game. And yeah, obviously Dallas away from home. I think Miami's banged up offensive line against Micah Parsons and co does concern me, but the Cowboys away from home, obviously they do have a losing record. Their defense is very good against the pass, but they get run over all the time. Buffalo did it, San Francisco did it as well, and Miami are the number 4 rushing team in the NFL. So I think the Dolphins will establish a run game with Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, and I think they will win this game in their beautiful throwback uniforms as well. What a uniform matchup we have! Obviously, the Cowboys classic white and the Dolphins throwback aqua is very 80s, and it's a great treat for Christmas Eve.
Yeah, like I said,
right,
mate,
we'll go. Yeah, awesome. Right, we'll go over to the rest of the 9 p.m. slate. We've got 2 games here. One very interesting, the other not very interesting at all. The Jags make the short trip down to Tampa to face an informed Bucs team, with both teams needing a victory to keep hold of the lead of their divisions. The Jags are probably going to be without franchise quarterback Trevor Lawrence too, though, who is in concussion protocol for a hit to the head on Sunday Night Football in their loss to the Ravens. I'm really looking forward to this one because there's so much riding on it. Obviously, the Bucs have won 3 straight, and a win here is huge for them ahead of their division deciding game against the Saints next week. If they win that game, they win it before they even play. Play in week 18. If they lose that, then it goes down to week 18. The Jags have lost 3 straight and are now on the same record as the Texans at the Colts. But without Lawrence, I don't trust them. So I'm going to pick the Bucs to take a stronghold in the NFC South race with a win. Obviously after the Saints lost last night. So give me Tampa.
Completely agree, mate. I think I said earlier, I think the Jags are really trending in the wrong direction at absolutely the wrong time. The only thing that's in their favour really is the fact that they've got a game against Carolina on the schedule, which you kind of think gives them a win. So you'd imagine that they'll be playing for something in week 18, one way or another. But I really don't fancy them at all this weekend. Like I said, particularly without Trevor Lawrence, He's not been brilliant at times this season, but obviously there's a huge drop-off between Trevor Lawrence and, is it Beathard? I would imagine he'll probably get the start with lockdown.
Yeah, CJ Beathard, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, definitely give me Tampa in that scenario. I think they, obviously, like you say, come in hot at the right time. I thought Baker Mayfield had one of his best games last week against Green Bay.
He was perfect, literally a perfect passer rating. Like that's And he was pressured as well. That's the main thing with Baker as well. He was under pressure all the time. He was sacked 5 times, and he still looked that good, which is very, very good for him because obviously against the pressure in Cleveland, he struggled a lot.
Yeah, I thought he was really, really good, and he's probably playing for his future as well. Whether they'll bring him back or not, I think they can do a lot worse than Baker Mayfield. But like I said, I thought he was excellent last week. Chris Godwin had a huge day.
And he was hurt as well. He didn't practice all week, and he had 160 yards. It's just mental.
Yeah, crazy, mate, crazy. So yeah, definitely, mate. Give me the Bucs in this one. I think, like I say, it's a really good time to play the Jags. I mean, they'll look back now at the sort of last 3 that they've had. That one in overtime to the Bengals is the one that's going to really sting. They should have taken care of business there. And then, to be honest, I think Trevor Lawrence's ankle sprain in that game, he was sort of probably 75-80% against Cleveland. And then they just didn't turn up at all, did they, on Sunday Night Football? Let's be honest, the Ravens just had a bit of a field day with them. So, yeah. Give me Tampa Bay, mate, definitely.
Awesome. And then we'll go over to the last game, and where Kyler Murray and Justin Fields meet in the battle of the QBs fighting for, or at least putting tape out there for a new job. I personally love watching both of these quarterbacks, so I'm looking forward to this one. If this was in Arizona, I'd pick them easily. At home, they're such a good team, but it's in Chicago. And so it makes it interesting. I think Arizona are probably the better coach team as well, but the Bears have also found a way to win games lately, which is very weird. So it's a very difficult game to pick. I'm just going to go with them. But again, I love the Cardinals to cover as a bet because the Bears are covered by our favourites by 4.5 points. So that's quite a nice one there because quite a big spread for quite a tight game.
Yeah, I obviously got a close-up view of the Bears last week, and to be honest, I was impressed for large portions of last week. I think Montez Sweat has made a huge difference on that defense. You can tell that statistically by the numbers. In terms of what he's been able to do in terms of the sack rate and the pressure rate, not just him as an individual, but the teams, it's all gone up massively since they swung that trade. Turnover-wise, they're really red hot at this moment in time. They've managed to force 14 takeaways in the last 4 games. If they can continue that trend, I would find it really hard to pick against them. They should have, like I said, probably won in terms of last week. They had a bit of a fourth quarter meltdown, to be honest. But for
they could be a postseason team now. It's just mental to think they've had 2 games where they've blown it in the fourth quarter of that one, and also the game against the Lions at the first game. If a couple of plays went differently, the Bears could be a 7-7 football team.
Yeah, look, the NFL is a game of fine margins, isn't it? It often comes down to who gets on the right side of these one-score outcomes, and that's what it is. You mentioned the Browns are 6-2 in such games. You flip that record to 2-6, and all of a sudden they'll be sort of one of the teams eliminated in the AFC side of things. So it is very much a case again on the right side of those. But I'll take the Bears in this one. I think the Cardinals really struggle to see where the Cardinals are going. There's still question marks about what they're going to do with Kyler Murray. I'm not convinced that the coaching change has sort of worked at all.
Really? No, I disagree. I think they, at home especially, they're a very difficult team to beat. They beat Dallas at home. Let's not forget that. And they thought they looked very good against the Niners last week as well. But I don't know. They've looked better than I thought they would because their roster is absolutely terrible, and they've managed to win 3 games of it.
Yeah. Yeah, look, the roster is poor. I mean, they've only won 2 games at home all year, so I'm not buying that it's been a huge sort of uptick in terms of from where they were. I think they'll stick with Jonathan Gannon. Don't get me wrong, but I think they need to see a big uptick. But they need to answer that question mark about what they're going to do at the quarterback position. Ultimately, obviously, Kyler Murray was very much Cliff Kingsbury's guy. And now he's not there. It obviously leaves the door open for that move to potentially be made. But look, Kyler Murray will end up somewhere if he's not back in Arizona. Someone will definitely.
I'd love to see him in Atlanta, him or Fields. I think both of them would fit that offense very, very nicely. So
yeah, he'll definitely get a job somewhere, mate. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Right, and we'll go over to Sunday Night Football, which is on NFL Network instead of NBC. As I said, they've jigged it around this week. We've got the Broncos looking to stay alive in the AFC wildcard race. They're hosting the Patriots, 3-11 Patriots as well, which is just weird to say. Obviously, the Denver defense is good. The Denver offense will be looking to put out a better offensive performance in their last game, where they had a little bit of a falling out. Wilson and Sean Payton did, so that's interesting. But yeah, no, obviously their defense will be fine against the Patriots offense. It's just whether the offense will be good enough against the Patriots defense that's been one of the best in the league lately. Which is weird to think that they're one of the best defenses in the league and they've won 3 games. It's weird. I think similar to the one against Kansas City last week for the Patriots, I think that the Broncos are too talented to lose it. But again, I won't be surprised if if the Broncos lose against the spread here, because I think 7.5 points is actually quite favourable to them, because they didn't look great on offense last week, and the Patriots defense is a bit of a problem.
Yeah, look, they, again, another one of those teams, they put that winning run together, and it was all really spurred by massively winning the turnover battle in those weeks that they put that winning run together. You know, they went obviously from 1-5 all the way to 6-5 with a 5-game sort of winning streak. But you look at the amount of turnovers they forced in those games, 5, 4, 3, 3. You know, once you're doing that, you're going to consistently win football games. So turnovers have dried up, and unsurprisingly, so have the wins. You know, they obviously lost 2 of the last 3. I'm not convinced in terms of their wildcard possibilities, even if they do win this game, which I probably expect them to. You know, if you look at the schedule, it's a nice looking schedule. But I also think there'd be a team that anybody would be quite happy to face in the playoffs if they do indeed get there. So I'll take them in this one, but as much as anything, that's because of New England as opposed to Denver.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go over to Christmas Day now. We'll stay in the AFC West with the Raiders going into Kansas City, where the Chiefs are looking to win their 8th straight AFC West title with a win against the Raiders coming to Arrowhead. It's not been pretty for the Chiefs this year, obviously, but they've got back to winning ways last week, and they have a very easy schedule the rest of the year compared to the rest of the division leaders, especially Miami and Baltimore. They could quite easily find their way to the 1 seed and a chance at a 6th straight home AFC Championship game, which is just mental because, they've not looked. They're now a 9-5 football team, but it looks like the wins are going to come. Obviously, they'll need other results to go their way, and they'll obviously need to win this one too. But I think they will because I think the Chiefs, they win these games in division, especially against the Raiders. The Raiders they've got that inability to beat the Chiefs, which is really weird. Them and the Broncos have really struggled recently to do that. When the Chargers have had a bit more luck. So yeah, give me the Chiefs to win this one. Obviously, I think it'll be close. I think again I'll pick the Raiders to cover. 10.5 points is quite a big spread. It's moved to 10.5 points now. But they've the Raiders have been good on defense this year, so I think it'll be close. But the Chiefs, I can't pick against Mahomes, Andy Reid at Arrowhead.
Yeah, well, there you go, mate. You've just summed it up there perfectly, haven't you? Like you say, you can't back against that combination at home, particularly against this opponent. As you say, you've got a particularly poor record in terms of certainly at Arrowhead. So yeah, can't see anything other than a Chiefs win. And like you say, as much as there's been a lot of turmoil this year, you know, when you look at it, they've been really consistent. You know, they've gone from 6-1 to 9-5, so obviously 500 record in the last few weeks. But as you say, would it be a huge surprise if they end up with the number 1 seed after all is said and done? Wouldn't be the world's biggest surprise, would it? So, yeah, definitely give me the Chiefs in this one.
Awesome, and then we'll finish with an all NFC East tie before getting into the big Monday Night Football game, where the Eagles, after losing 3 straight, have all the eyes on them to bounce back on a nationally televised game on Christmas Day against the division rival Giants, and what a better time to do so. Obviously, a win here will be crucial for not just deciding the winner of the NFC East, but also in playoff season 2. Should the Niners lose to Baltimore, it makes it very interesting in that aspect too. But I don't think it'll be that simple. I think the Giants have been a bit frisky recently, especially on defense. Like, the Eagles are too good for me to pick against them, but again, the Eagles, they're 13.5 point favourites. I love the Giants to cover here.
Yeah, definitely give me the points. Certainly not convinced that it's going to be a comprehensive Eagles victory, that's for sure. So, yeah, absolutely give me those points. I think, like you say, the Giants have actually been sneakily quite fun to watch in the last few weeks. You know, it was a season that was really lost before it had begun, if we're being honest. You know, it was, very quickly from playoff darlings a year ago to 1-5, Daniel Jones out and, season essentially over. But they've played quite well and they've played some entertaining stuff in recent times. Philadelphia for me are really struggling, really struggling. And it's not the ideal game for them to get right because, as you say, defensively, the Giants in particular have been quite frisky, to use your words there, mate. And there's a lot of pressure on this game. We talked about the significance of Dallas getting a home game. Philadelphia will not be unaware of that themselves, obviously. They'll know the importance of getting ahead of Dallas in this divisional race. And certainly from a schedule perspective, you look at it on paper and you think, well, that's quite kind. 2 games with the Giants and a game with the Cardinals. But, can't stress enough, yes, they've played some quality opposition. But, that's 3 games in a row that the Eagles have lost now. Jalen Hurts looks a little bit lost at this moment in time. He sort of, the look, if you like, when the interception was confirmed on Monday night to end the game was one of almost bewilderment. It's like, well, this doesn't happen to us. It's since he's come into the team, they've eventually found a way to sort of win these close ball games, and they always come out on the right side of them. But obviously in recent weeks, it just hasn't transpired that way. So I think this is a sneaky game. I certainly fancy the Giants in terms of giving those points. As I say, I could see this being a field goal game, and I could see it being a field goal game either way. To be honest, I think the Giants will quite relish the opportunity to be party poopers on Christmas Day. And I think all the pressure in the world is on the Eagles. If they get off to a poor start, it won't be long.
That's the thing.
It won't be long. The birds will be out.
If they don't get out in the lead, a lot of the time they lose. The only game where they came from behind and lost. This year they just don't. If they go behind, they lose. That's the way it's been. The Jets, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, all those games. The Niners lost as well. All of those games they were behind at the start and they lost the game. So that's if the Giants can sort of hold them at the start, then it would be very, very interesting, indeed. Right, we'll finish off this slate with the end of the Christmas Day slate, which finishes with a Super Bowl preview between the 11-3 Baltimore Ravens, who head to San Francisco to face off against the 11-3 Niners, and obviously MVP favourite Brock Purdy too. We've got the AFC 1 seed versus the NFC 1 seed. Obviously, a potential Super Bowl preview, as I said, on Christmas Day. The league are just great at their schedule making, aren't they, Shaun?
Yeah, it's funny how it works out. I'm glad you changed it there to a potential Super Bowl preview there, mate. Well, I was a little bit concerned when you said it originally. Huge game, mate. Huge game, and one that I'm really looking forward to. I picked the 49ers at the start of the season to win the Super Bowl. We'll never know what would have happened in terms of Brock Purdy in the championship game from a year ago. But I just felt that they were the most complete roster. And I've always been a big believer in Brock Purdy. I know there's a few people that knock the fact that he's a sixth quarterback. And I've got to be honest, I hate that term. I really do. You've still got to be a very good quarterback to operate within whatever the system is. And, he's been phenomenal pretty much all year for them. Christian McCaffrey's just a complete difference maker, changes the offense completely. And Deebo Samuel is huge for them as well. Real gadget player. Love watching Deebo play, whether he's sort of receiving it at the backfield or whether he's actually running routes as a traditional receiver. I think he, again, is another exceptional talent. So I really, really do like this team. But it's a big challenge for them. The Ravens have rightfully earned that record at the top of the AFC. They haven't they've only lost one game in the last, how many am I going back here? Last 9, I think. They've gone from 4-2 to 11-3. The game they lost was ironically to Cleveland at home as well. That was the last time the Browns had Deshaun Watson. But they've just taken care of business in every game and they shake comfortably. They beat the Bengals by 14, the Chargers by 10. The big one that they got, and they got a little bit of an assist, if we're honest, is the Rams, because they obviously had a massive block in the back on the punt return that called. And that was a really good and interesting game. And then they absolutely took care of business against Jacksonville. So the Ravens will know that they still need to sort of make sure that they take care of their business. They've got 2 big games coming up. They've got this one and then obviously the Dolphins the week after. If they lose both of those, and hypothetically the Browns beat Houston and they beat New York on Thursday night, that final week of the season, the Browns would actually control the division then because of the tiebreakers. So they still could probably do with at least getting one of these next two. I don't see them getting this one. I think San Francisco are the superior team. I really like the construction of the roster. I think they're really, really talented on both sides of the ball. It's almost like cheating, isn't it, getting Chase Young partway through the season and adding him to that defensive line as well. So, yeah, give me the 49ers in this one. And although I said earlier I probably won't get to watch much Christmas football, the fact that this one's basically on once everybody's gone to bed, there's a chance that it might end up on the TV, this one, mate, because, absolute belter of a game.
Yeah, it's essentially Boxing Day, isn't it? So, that's always a bonus as well. Right, yeah, we've got the number one team in offensive points per game against the number one defense in the Ravens, obviously. But they are another contender that are yet to have a signature win against another contender, you'd say. They've beaten, they've not really beaten anyone, really. They've faced a fairly easy schedule out of division. Obviously, they've won division games, but there are question marks in that aspect. They weren't exactly convincing against the Jags last week. In fact, they probably should have been trading at half time, but they got the win, and that's what they've been doing for decades. It's just the Ravens' way, isn't it? Obviously, but they now do, as you said, Sean, face two of the league's best teams back to back in the Niners and the Dolphins. Obviously, two games that will just decide the entire landscape of the AFC as well. On the opposing side, obviously the Niners have looked like the best team in the entire league in the second half of the season. They've rebounded from their 3-game losing streak heading into the bye, and obviously that's the only 3 games they've lost all season. Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, and CMC have been an unstoppable trio in that period as well. Those two weapons have been on smoke since getting healthy, and every time I see the Niners play, I see them just wide open, all with the ball in tons of space, which obviously helps out their quarterback. But I'm not the biggest fan of Purdy. I like him, but I'd much rather have Lamar Jackson. But yeah, it's the battle. It's the Niners offense against the best defense in the league, the Ravens defense. That's the game. That's what will win this game. I feel like both units on the other side, both units are pretty even. So I think this one here is it's huge, isn't it? Because if Purdy looks the same as he has done the rest of the year against this Ravens defense, I think he wins MVP. If he doesn't, it looks like Dak did last week, then it makes it interesting. It's a very, very interesting game. And look, we're really going to see what the Niners offense are made of against this Baltimore defense, aren't we, Sean?
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup for them, though. I think the Ravens defense, the style they play, it's very much keep the ball in front of you, rally, make the tackle. They're not necessarily a huge man team, and obviously, like you say, the way that the Niners are able to scheme things open, again, they're a team that uses plenty of motion, misdirection. Like I say, they'll get people like Samuel lined up in the backfield, so you've got sort of a bit of trickery and that kind of thing to contend with. I do think it's a decent matchup for them in that regard. I agree with you, though. I think Lamar Jackson is potentially a difference maker. He doesn't run as often now, which I think is probably a good thing in terms of his longevity and his overall sort of health, if you like. He's on course to complete all games this season, which is something he hasn't done for a little while now. And I do think that reduction in his volume of rushing is a significant part of the reason as to why that is the case. But again, he's still more than capable, and he's still always going to carry that threat in the rushing game, isn't he? So he's certainly probably the better quarterback, so to speak. But like I said, that's without being disrespectful to Brock Purdy, who, as I said earlier, I think has been absolutely phenomenal. So I think it's a decent enough matchup for the 49ers, but maybe I'm just being a little bit biased because, as I say, I did sort of say pre-season I fancied them, and there's nothing that's changed my mind. I thought the bye week came at an absolutely perfect time. As you say, they were on a 3-game skid going into that. But again, they've absolutely rebounded, haven't they? And the beauty of it all, mate, we've talked about all these games in the last couple, there's still so much to play for all these teams, whether it be the fact that there's only one team that gets a bye now is huge, isn't it? It's a huge incentive now. Not that it wasn't before anyway, but it's an even bigger incentive now. Try and secure that bye, try and secure your home field advantage, all of these type of things. And all of these teams at the top of the NFC, the 3 of them that have got the 10-4 record, all just split at the minute on tiebreakers or whatever the case may be. These are huge, huge games for all of them. So really looking forward to it, mate. Really looking forward to it. I think they are two of the Premier teams. And all joking aside, as you did say, it could be a Super Bowl preview. So it will give us some clues as to where the spoils might be going come the end of, the start of February.
It'll be a repeat Super Bowl as well. Obviously, these two teams met in 2012, the Harbaugh Bowl back then with Kaepernick and Joe Flacco. Literally 11 years later, it could happen again. I fancy the Ravens to do something here. As I said, they're yet to beat a big team. Win this one, and the one seed is very likely, especially if obviously Miami still to play them and Buffalo still being. If the Ravens win this one, I think for them it's golden. If they lose this one, then it just makes everything very, very interesting. But no, I'm gonna pick them to upset here. I've got a feeling they'll they're still waiting for that signature win. This is that signature win. I'll try to stay up for this one for sure because I've got Watford away the next day, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'll try and stay up. But that's it. That is week 16, the Christmas week of the NFL preview. I've been your host Sam, and obviously Shaun, it's been great to have you on again.
No, pleasure, mate. Really, always enjoy it, mate. And enjoy your Christmas, buddy. Enjoy all the football and everything else you've got to try and squeeze in over this busy period. And let's hope that we both get an enjoyable Sunday evening with both their teams on the box, mate. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, that's the thing. If the Dolphins beat the Cowboys, I try not to get too ahead of myself. But yeah, it's probably the biggest game the Dolphins have had in, well, I'd probably say maybe 20 years. If you're being honest, it's huge for them these next 3 weeks. So yeah, it'll be a nervy Christmas Eve for sure. But that is it for the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast this week. I'll see you at some point over the Christmas period to break down week 16. I don't know when it will be, just because it's Christmas and it's a bit flexible, isn't it? But there will be a week 16 recap. But yeah, probably Wednesday, I'd say. So I'll see you on Wednesday. But for now, this has been the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast, and yeah. Christmas. Have a good Christmas, everyone.